real privilege, and I do appreciate the invitation to join you at your Teachers Convention, to have the opportunity to talk about the future of education. And I know that you agree with me that education is fundamental, foundational to the future of this province and to the future of Alberta. Nothing is more important in my mind than how we make sure that our children and their children have the opportunity to develop the knowledge, skills, and attributes that they need to be citizens of a global world in the 21st century. We know that we're moving, if we haven't already moved, into a knowledge-based economy, that is going to be a global situation. I think the last 3 months have shown how global our economy is. Whether we live in a large city or a small community, whether we come from the FNMI population or whether we're coming from a family of recent immigrants, perhaps refugees to our country, whether we come from a family with a high socioeconomic background or whether we come from a family of poverty, education is the opportunity. Education is the opportunity to make sure that every child can maximize his or her potential. That means that every child will have the opportunity to grow up, to take care of themselves and their families to the extent that they're able, and contribute back to their community. Teachers are absolutely fundamental to education. It's not the technology, we'll talk about technology, but it's not the technology that's important. It's not the textbooks that are important. It's not the school buildings, although I have to admit that over the last year I've been fundamentally surprised. I use the word fundamentally a lot. I've been surprised a bit by how much we talk about buses and schools and how little we actually talk about education policy. It's not the buses and the schools, although those are important. It is the teacher that's fundamental to education. All the studies show that a teacher, a mentor, a role model, is the single most important factor in a student's successful life, or a successful student's life. One adult in a student's life makes the difference between success and failure. Now, it's not always a teacher, but often it is, because teachers are the people who take the time to work with the child, to find out what a child's talents and abilities are, to draw out their passions, to find that nugget, to find what they can be good at. So I understand not only the value of teachers to the community and the students, but the passion that good teachers bring to what they do. The nature of the job, the values that are brought to the classroom, and what makes good teachers. I wear this button that was given to me in one of the schools in my constituency that I've been to a lot over the years. It says, you can't read it from back there, it says children first. I find it's very focusing. But having said that, I think we need to recognize that the whole nature of education is changing. We live in a society where knowledge and information is no longer the purview of a few. Information is no longer hoarded. Knowledge and information are widely available. We've got broadband internet to all of our schools across the province. People can access all sorts of information. So the real challenge is not the information, not the knowledge base, the dissemination of knowledge through textbooks and teaching. The real challenge is how we use that information. How we determine the information is valid. How do we determine its veracity? How do we use it as a basis for problem solving, critical thinking, and the other things that have come to be known colloquially as 21st century skills? And that's the real challenge as we move forward. Not just to have technology, but to use technology in a way which enlivens learning and recognizes that that's the world our children are in. And that world is not a static world, that's a world that's constantly changing. We have to understand how technology and media opens up the world, and how it engages inquiring minds, that our students bring. That's the challenge of the future. And it's not new. People have been using technology in their classrooms for a long time, and that technology has been changing, but they've been using the technology. Teachers have been using gaming for a long time. I was at a conference, there was a speaker at the conference talking about computer games and computer games' role in learning and how gaming is an important part of learning. And I was sitting there thinking, I was in my mom's grade 6 classroom. small town, you sometimes are in your mom's classroom. Differentiated instruction is a new concept. We were all in our corners doing the things that we could do. There were a whole bunch of kids who got to go to the back of the room and play games, ring toss. That's how they learned to add, because it was important to be able to add the scores so you knew where you were. So differentiated instruction, use of games is not new. The technology allows you to do it differently. But the revolutionizing of access to information is a new issue for us. The thing that will revolutionize education is not the technology and not the information. The thing that will revolutionize education will be teachers who are willing to be able to use technology to its full advantage and not be afraid of the fact that sometimes our kids know more about it than we do. We need to be able to use the technology not just to replace our blackboards, but to really change our teaching style and our learning style. The young kids in school are going to use technology differently than we do. The recent conference I was at, one of the speakers was talking about the fact that they were working with some students and talking about how students use technology. And the subject of email came up, and one of the kids said, well, email, that's how we communicate with our parents and our parents' friends. We don't talk to each other with email. Technology changes, and even the stuff that's new to us and exciting to us is old hat to students. So we are going to move forward. We are going to use a lot of technology in our system, in our classrooms. We need to bring the technology in. But we also need to make sure that we're not just using technology in the same old way, that we're actually using it as a communication device, talking to students in their language and helping the students know and understand that the information that they can get through the technology is important, but how they use the technology, how they use that information, how they verify that information is really what it's about. Using technology in assessment will become important as we move forward, because technology will be a lot of the way our children communicate. It's second nature to them. Computer adaptive assessment then becomes a very important topic as we go forward. How do we do it? How do we make sure it's done appropriately? One of the exciting things recently that's come out is a study that's being done now, some work that's being done by Dr. Barry McGraw of the Melbourne Education Research Institute at the University of Melbourne. And he's teamed up with a number of technology companies, Cisco, Intel, Microsoft, and they brought in the people at PISA and TIMSS as part of their steering group. And they're doing a 3-year research program on how you assess the skills of the 21st century. We profess now to want to be moving from content-based curriculum to skills-based curriculum, and I would argue that many of you have moved long ago to the skills-based curriculum. But how do we then, if that's what we want to achieve, if we want to achieve students who have the 21st century skills, and if we can identify what those are, how do we do appropriate assessments both of and for learning of those 21st century skills? How do we know that we're being successful? So Dr. Barry McGraw is engaged in this project with, as I said, the support of those organizations. And I had a chance to talk with them at the beginning of this process and say, we're very interested in being involved in that, because assessment is important. Assessment of learning, assessment for learning is important, but it's very important that we know what we're doing and that we know why we're doing it and that we use its results appropriately. We can't limit our children's access to information. Australia tried to spend quite a considerable amount of money to try to build a firewall so students couldn't get to the things that they shouldn't get to. And it took, I think, about 16 minutes for the first student to break the firewall. We're not going to keep information away from students. So what we do need to do is to make sure that they know and understand how to use it. I started a blog a year ago. I dropped off the wagon for a while, but I'm getting that blog back up and running, and we're going to be talking about issues of education, and I look forward to your comments, your input, your ideas, your critique on the way we go forward, and I look forward to a continual discussion with you. Thanks very much.